So today I want to go back to the holistic aquaponics, this type of aquaponic system that I have behind me, because it's been 2 years that I have put it in place, and now I want to give you a real feedback on how this type of aquaponic system is performing. It's performing way beyond my expectation, but I want to detail that. I want to explain the journey. Until now I have been doing a few videos about this aquaponic system, but I didn't really push it too much. I really wanted to experience it, see how it reacts, and now it's been 2 years and I have a lot of good information to share with you. So stay on and we'll go through this in this video. But before, I want to thank you for all the beautiful comments I received on my video about prawns in aquaponics. I know you guys really liked it, and it's really cool when I see all those views on one video. It encouraged me to work more and do more videos for you. So today we'll talk about this holistic aquaponics, but I want to explain you why I came to this design. You know, when I was young, I've always been very attracted by fish, but fish in the natural environment. Then when I did my studies, I did studies in landscaping, but I did a lot of studies in aquaculture. And when I worked in aquaculture, I was growing fish, but I was very sad because the fish were not growing in a natural environment. I could see that the fish, well, what we say in aquaculture is instead of growing fish, we manage disease. We manage the quantity of disease that are living on the fish, simply because they don't live in the best condition. We grow them at very high density, and we manage the quantity of disease that are growing on the fish to keep them alive and to grow them. It's not really what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was to recreate a whole ecosystem, to grow the fish as they are growing in the natural environment. And that's what led me to this type of aquaponic system. So during my career, I worked on a lot of different farms, but the type of aquaculture that was looking the most to what we are doing today is when I worked on the trout farm, of course, because that's the type of fish I'm growing here among others. But really in the trout farm, I was only growing the fish, and the environment was just here to support the fish. You know, a lot of water and renewing the water. We didn't really mind about recirculating the water or the quantity of pollution that was produced. So that was really a problem that we had in classic aquaculture, and something I really wanted to work on. And I wanted to be able to enjoy growing fish at home in my backyard, but growing them in a very beautiful environment, somewhere where I feel good, where I feel relaxed, when I see the ecosystem, but also where the fish are living in the best conditions. And I think now with holistic aquaponics, this type of system that we have here behind me, I think we will really reach this goal. You know, when I started aquaponics, I always had this in mind, and even what I have in mind is even bigger projects for the future. But this type of principle is exactly what I wanted to do, but I started to experiment on little scale, aquarium and IBCs, you know, some type of classic aquaponic system where you got fish tank and a grow bed, and then you can have some sump tank, different types of filtrations. But it was always square, rectangular, and I could see the limitations of those type of systems. Then in my mind, I always thought, whenever I can afford, I will build and I will experiment, because this was experimentation when I built it. I didn't know if it would work really well. Hence why I didn't put it in place at a customer place. I built it at my place first, because all this is basically an experiment, a very positive experiment, and I think it's a real success. But when I built it, a lot of people told me it would be a disaster, and it would be a failure. And a lot of people could foresee issues with algae going into the pond, a lot of things in the design as well, because it's not exactly the same design as we have with square tanks. You know, you need to adapt it to whatever landscape you want to create. And because I have a background as a landscaper, it really helped me to put in place what I wanted to achieve with aquaponics. So in this holistic aquaponics, behind me, we have 2 grow beds at the back and 1 fish tank at the bottom. And they work together, such as what you would see in a classic IBC system where you have 1 grow bed on the top. Here we just have 2 grow beds, 1 there and 1 there. I know today with all those plants, it's quite hard to see the grow beds, but there are 2 grow beds with a cascade that is falling back, with 2 cascades that are falling back into the fish tank. I will put some images of how I built the setup. So as you understand here, there was nothing when I bought this property. Even the terrace was not on. So I built the terrace with this nice curve, and I designed the curve because I knew I wanted to build the aquaponic system and make the aquaponic system come along here. I wanted the pond to be along the terrace. Then I dig the pond. So to dig a pond, there are some very important things to respect if you want to have a natural design. You don't just dig a hole, you know, you need to know what you are doing. Digging it, I digged it by hand. As I digged it, of course, there was a lot of material that I extracted, and fortunately on the bottom that was clay. So I used this clay to build a shed, and I can show you a few images of this shed. Very happy with this shed. I think it looks fantastic and it's very natural. You know, you take natural material here to build something in the backyard. So I'm super happy with it. And of course, I took also this material to build the two grow beds that we see at the back. So the grow beds, they are built out of different materials, but clay is one, so that's what we call cob work. Of course, I got a frame with wood, I got a liner inside, and all around on the surrounding, I got stones and concrete. So when I built the aquaponic system, my aim was really to have something to look very natural. I wanted to recreate a whole oasis in my backyard. I didn't want to have just a plastic aquaponics or something square. I really worked on different design. For people who are renting, I am offering what I call bespoke aquaponics, which is square boxes made out of cypress wood, and it looks very nice. But I didn't want to have those angles. I wanted something to look very natural, like there is an oasis, a billabong in your backyard. And that's really what I achieved here. It was really something that I had in mind from the very beginning of the project. And when I started to fill the pond with water, and I did a bit of landscaping around, after a few days, I already had ducks in my pond. Crazy, completely crazy. I had a family of ducks that came here. I don't even know how they came, to be honest, because, you know, it's kind of locked all around my property. But a mother duck with her little babies, the ducklings, were swimming into the pond. And they looked fantastic. It was amazing. We were super happy. I was able to feed them. So they stayed here for a little while, then they went away. Then I had a couple of other ducks that came, never stayed long really. And as soon as I started to put the fish in the pond, then I didn't see the ducks anymore. So I can't really tell if there is a link. But you know, 2 years ago I had ducks come in when I put the pond in place during the cycling period, basically. But after that, the ducks flew away, and when I put the fish in the system, the duck never came back. So are they afraid of the fish? I'm not really sure. I know that ducks are able to eat small fish, but baby ducks could be eaten by large fish as well. And here in the system, I got trout that are several kilos. So I don't know really what is the reason. Also, I got so many plants now that they are kind of covering the pond. So maybe the duck don't really bother. Before you could see a large pond. but now with the plants, the pond seems so small. So that's something also to take in consideration, and that's maybe the reason why the ducks are not coming anymore. However, there is a lot of food now for the ducks with all those, those plants around, a lot of insects all around. Anyway, that's all I can tell about the ducks. I'm not really a duck expert, but that's what I observed. A lot of people also told me if I went towards this type of aquaponic system, I would have a lot of troubles with predator birds, birds that would come and pick my fish. And honestly, it never happens. I never lost a fish. Yeah, once I found a fish on the side here that was dead. I didn't see any mark on it, and I just think, unfortunately, it probably jumped out and just died on the terrace. And only one fish. It happened to only one fish out of 2 years. And I can tell you I grew probably a bit more than 500, yeah, maybe 700 fish in this pond. And I had only one that jumped out and was not able to go back in the pond. Often in the past, when I fed the fish, it happened that some jumped out, but they were able to swim back or to jump back into the pond. So only one lost. And really, I haven't seen any predator bird. Now, it's true that the pond is very close to my house. And that's what I will recommend all of my students and all of you who are watching this video. If you happen to want to build this type of aquaponic system, I recommend to have it close to your house so you can keep an eye on it. Of course, it's beautiful to see this oasis from your living room, because my living room is just there and there is a window. And from there, I can really see the fish. I can even feed the fish from inside. So it's really cool. But it really protects the birds. And then if you are in an area where there are a lot of birds, there is always a possibility to put a net on top. But personally, I don't really like nets. I like it to look very natural. So the closer to the house and the better. Of course, you need to keep in mind that when you dig a pond, if you dig it correctly, that's fine. But if you don't dig it correctly, there are some things to respect, If you don't dig it correctly, you don't want to have it close to your house because it may generate some collapses. So you don't want your house to collapse in the pond, right? So of course, you need to keep some distance from the house, but as soon as you are like 2 meters away from the house and you dig your pond correctly, so you respect some very specific principle, then you will be fine. So now this aquaponic system has got a lot of advantages, and of course, the aesthetic is huge, right? I can come here in the morning to meditate. I come here to reconnect with nature, come here to relax. I got a hammock here. It's really the area of the house where I love to spend some time. But it's not just that, the holistic aquaponic system gives way more. And one of the things that I want to highlight here, I have a whole training about holistic aquaponics here where I go through all the different things to take in consideration when you design your system. But one of the most positive aspects is that in holistic aquaponics, you can plant some aquatic plants around your pond. And you may not necessarily think about it, but it has 2 major positive effects on the aquaponic system. First, well, without talking about the aesthetic, right? Because the aesthetic is amazing. It looks like a rainforest, but without talking about that. The first thing is, in aquaponics, very often we are thinking, okay, the fish are going to release some waste into the water, and this waste is going to be eaten by the bacteria. Then the bacteria are going to release some nutrient for the plants. That's how it works, yeah? But very often in aquaponics, we want to have fish, we want to have a lot of fish, depending on people, right? But I know a lot of people who really like to have a lot of fish in their pond. The problem is, even if you have a grow bed that is adapted, often you don't have enough plants in your grow bed to absorb all the nutrients. So having some plants like those ones is going to allow you to manage the quantity of nitrates that is present in the pond. Basically, you keep your water always clean because there is no accumulation of nutrient in the water. And of course, those plants here, they look fantastic. But of course, when they get old, you can see this leaf here. I don't want to fall in the pond, but you can see this leaf is getting old. when the leaves are getting old, I cut them and I use them, I chop them and I use them as a cover for my classic garden. So by doing so, I really remove a lot of extra nutrients that I don't use anyway from the system, which allows me to keep more fish and keep them in better conditions. Be careful, you need to have enough bacteria for your fish, right? Here I got 2 grow beds and I got all the surrounding of the pond that is acting as a grow bed. That's also a very important point that I will raise just after. So that's one interesting thing with those type of plants, with all those plants here and even the floats, where this is mint and plants that we can consume, but all those plants that we are growing in interaction with the fish, basically, they have very positive effect. Now, the second very positive effect is that here we are recreating a whole natural ecosystem, natural biotope. The fish are not evolving in a square box, they are evolving in a billabong, in a pond, in a lake, in a dam. They are evolving in an area that is looking very natural, very close to the natural environment, and there are a lot of plants, roots, rocks in the pond, right? So all those roots, all those plants, they are growing in a very shallow area, right? I got 20 centimeters of water. They are living from 40 to 1 centimeters of water, those plants, yeah? So all this is creating a lot of sticks, and the fish are able to go in between. So the big fish, my big trout, I got big trout that are few kilos, they are staying in the middle, but all the baby fish, all the small fish, all the fry is able to go in between. They're able to hide, and it creates a kind of mangrove. That's exactly the type of thing that is happening in the ocean with the mangrove. It's happening here. It allows us to have a huge biodiversity. And in my last video that I know you enjoyed about prawns, the prawns are hiding in the mangrove right now, in this mangrove, where those plants are growing, And it's the same for all those little animals, all those insects, and it makes the whole ecosystem work so much better and so much more interesting, because if I add something in the ecosystem, I got way more chance that this animal is going to live. Also, nature is, it's open here. I got birds, I got everything, so I got always new species that are coming. Insects, the number of dragonfly flying around is just huge, just amazing. Basically, it's just lovely. I just love it. So you can't imagine the advantage of having those type of plants. Also, you can get those plants because they're going to breed, they're going to reproduce so much that you can take them and offer to your friends, put some in the garden. They are so beautiful. I have some in my classic garden, even if they are kind of aquatic plants. If they are in a good environment with a good mulch on top where you can keep the soil moist, they will survive and they will grow really well and be very nice and give a really nice green in your garden. So it is some of the positive consequences of having plants in your aquaponic system and having a natural aquaponic system. Now, another thing that is extremely important and nobody takes in consideration, I don't know why nobody is doing this on internet when I watch aquaponics videos, is that when you have a pond, you have all the surrounding of the pond that are shallow, right? And in the surrounding of the pond, I got an area where I got flat rocks just for the beauty, for the aesthetic. Another area here where I got the terrace. But all the rest of the surrounding of the pond is scoria, which is basically a media. And this scoria is basically between the surface of the pond and 30 centimeters deep. And guess what? Here we are in a grow bed flood and drain backyard aquaponic system, right? Even if it's holistic, it's still the same principle. There is a water pump in the pond that is raising the water into the 2 different grow beds. When the water is into the grow bed, when the grow beds are full, the water level in the fish tank or in the pond is slightly lower. And when the grow beds are emptying, the water level here is slightly higher. So if you are familiar with flood and drain grow bed aquaponic systems, you understand that in the grow bed we have a lot of media and bacteria. But the beauty of this type of holistic aquaponics is that all the surrounding is acting exactly the same way as in the grow bed, which means that I have a lot of bacteria all on the surrounding here that are able to breathe and to have access to the nutrients, because the water level in the pond is also going up and down. It's not a huge variation, it's not going to be 30 centimeters variation, but I still have a fair few centimeters of variation in my pond. And this has a very positive impact on all the bacteria that I can have on the surrounding of the pond. All around the pond there is a zone where the water is going up and down several times per hour, and that's thanks to the bell siphon that we have in the grow beds, right? So here you see there is a cascade. When it's dropping, the water level increase into the pond, and therefore all this zone that is around here is a zone where I have some scoria. Only at one area I got some nice river rocks, river pebbles, as you can see, but all the rest, all around, I got scoria. And the reason why I have scoria is because it's very porous, as you know, very good for bacteria, so it increases the biological capacity of the system to transform the fish poop, which is ammonia, into nitrate and nitrate. So I'm going to use it as a filtration further to the already existing grow beds that we have here and there. The pond. And if you understand that, you can understand the power of the holistic aquaponics system, because it means that I can have way more fish here. I got all this surrounding where I have bacteria that are working for us on top of all the ones that we have in the grow bed, such as in a classic aquaponics system. Plus, all the surrounding, we got plants, as I was saying before. So all those plants, they are also absorbing the nitrogen. So this type of aquaponics system is not only way more beautiful, it's not only bringing you happiness, you know, good energies, and it's not just an oasis in your backyard. It's also an aquaponics system on steroids. The full productivity of the aquaponics system is boosted. It's going to produce twice as much as a classic aquaponics system. That is the beauty and the power of holistic aquaponics. So now, if you are renting your property, I totally understand why you would have a square aquaponics system. If you are a beginner at aquaponics, I also understand that maybe you prefer to experiment on a small setup, and for this type of purpose, a small IBC or a plastic aquaponics can work. But if you are really serious about aquaponics, you should stop all the things you are doing with plastic, and you should definitely go for this. Now, again, there are a lot of things to know before you go for holistic in the design of the system. If you can see all around, you will not see any liner, you will not see any plastic. And unfortunately, when people try to make a pond, to build a pond, without even talking about the complexity of aquaponics, the specific cascade that we have here with the specific bell siphons, just by design, very often they don't make it properly, and then you will always see the liner on the surrounding of the pond, which is really ugly in my view. So if you plan to do your holistic aquaponics system, do your research to do it properly and not do it twice. It's a bit of work, but the reward definitely worth it. So if you want my support to build and manage a holistic aquaponics system, then I'm offering a training. You will find it on the website Aquaponics Revolution. And if you want to learn about aquaponics, I really recommend you to join the Aquaponics Revolution community. There is a link into the description of this video, just below in the comments. And that's why you will be able to join the community and have access to a free training. So if you have friends who are interested by aquaponics, don't hesitate to share this video. They will probably be interested by this concept. It's quite unusual for aquaponics, and it's producing so much more. It's so much better than the classic ones. If you haven't seen the video about prawns in aquaponics, I really recommend you to watch this video. And if I may ask, I would really appreciate for you to give a like to this video. I'll see you in the next one. Salut!